And hopefully, if all goes well, I should have another video up very soon. A video you can watch for all seasons.
Okay, yeah, sure. My first video had a goofy MCU, like post-credit scene, name drop or whatever. I thought it was cheeky, so I put it in there. But whatever, back on topic. What's the best Superman story of all time? I don't know, but it's definitely not this one. Okay, yeah, hot take. All-Star is not the be-all, end-all Superman story, even if it is like a top 10 Superman story. All right, stop glazing this page. It's not genius. It's honestly very slightly out of touch in my opinion, but whatever. I still love the story. Okay, while I definitely don't have an exact answer for what the best Superman story of all time is, or even what my favorite one is, there's one comic series that fills me with the feelings of warmth and nostalgia, love and tenderness, and the overall awareness that while I might feel isolated at times, like I'm the only person that can't be understood, there will always be people that love me and care about me and appreciate me for my true self. And that story is Superman's Secret Identity by Kurt Busiek and Stuart Immonen. Okay, obviously that's not... Wait, hold on, wait. Eminem? Dude, Eminem? Yeah, Superman for All Seasons does that too, and it's also very good. It's probably, in my opinion, the go-to story for people trying to get into Superman. It was definitely one of the first books I read when I got into comics. Written by Jeff Lowe with the beautiful art by Tim Sale and colors by Bjarne Hansen, Superman for All Seasons is one of the most beautiful Superman stories, despite how simplistic it is. Alright, I'm not going to go too in-depth because I strongly suggest you read it, but pretty much it's a 4-issue miniseries with each issue highlighting a different season of the year, narrated by a different people in Clark/Superman's life. It highlights not only what Superman, the figure, means to other people, but also how Clark, the person, and his relationships with other people throughout his life are at the heart of what makes Clark Superman. It's a beautiful exploration of the character in his earlier years, and I could go on and on talking about it. I've literally had to cut down this part of the script like 20 times to condense it, so I'll end it for now. But if you're a fan of the sentimental stuff in the Smallville TV show, you'll really love this. Also, side note, the unofficial sequel to this, the Kryptonite arc from Superman Confidential by Darwin Cook, also with art by Tim Sale, is amazing, and it deserves much more praise. Probably as much praise as Superman for All Seasons gets, to be honest. Dude, I haven't even mentioned the art yet. Holy yap, I don't know how long this video is going to be. Okay, but the art of the story is definitely not for everyone, especially if you like the muscular, strong, lean Superman. Tim Sale's art is very stylized, with characters having extreme features, either very round or doughy or very angular. And I absolutely love this aesthetic for these kinds of one-off stories like Batman Long Halloween or Daredevil Yellow, but most importantly, Superman for All Seasons. While his heroes aren't the so lean and ripped Jim Lee, John Byrne, Henry Cavill, super strong, manly man Superman, I do like that stuff, but something is to be said about the soft, Pixar-like features of Tim Sale's art. I mean, the art in his stories almost look like something that could be pulled out of a kid's picture book, and I absolutely love it. I mean, especially for a character like Superman. This is something that is complemented incredibly well by Bjarne Hansen's beautiful coloring, giving it a vivid watercolor look. Like, it's frankly breathtaking. Just about every panel in this miniseries is its own little work of art in pretty much every manner. Having this comic in the absolute format is really amazing, and I encourage you to buy it. I've reread it so many times, I'm genuinely considering buying a second copy because of how much I love this thing. So it definitely goes without saying that I like this comic a lot, and I wanted a physical representation of it. My biggest problem is that I had no idea how I was going to do Tim Sale's art justice with how unique it is, let alone if it was even possible to replicate Bjarne Hansen's watercolor aesthetic in plastic form. You know, I couldn't just do a custom head or a repaint like I always do. I wanted to honor the artist's work, so I had to commit to it. So I thought about it really hard, I snapped my fingers, and boom, here it was. Tim Sale Superman right in front of me. Yeah, I know, if only it were that easy. Let's go back to the beginning and see how I actually did it. The first thing I thought of was, what do I do for the body? You know, I wanted a body with a lighter blue base that was also super bulky and like almost chunky or doughy. So early last year, McFarlane put out this Return of Superman figure with Krypto, and it's not a good figure. It's actually a very not good figure. You could even say it's bad. But I wanted Krypto, and I knew I could use the body for something, so I bought it. And I figured this was the exact thing I wanted to use the body for. So with 20% of the battle finally figured out, I needed to address the elephant in the room, his head. Like I said, Sale's art is very unique, and not a lot of art, let alone action figures, look like it. However, something I always kind of noticed was that Ed McGuinness' Superman kind of looked like a Giga Chad version of Tim Sale's Superman. If you could just like somehow de-chatify his face, you'd almost have a dead ringer for Sale's art. And lucky for me, DC Direct made an Ed McGuinness Superman figure based on the Public Enemies comic. A drive to the comic shop and $15 later, I ended up with this figure in my possession and I could start planning it out. First, I fitted the head on the McFarlane body by dremeling it out and then making a peg hole that fit using hot glue. Then I took a picture of it on the McFarlane body and I made a quick digital mock-up of what would needed to be altered to resemble Sale's art more, which looked like this. So all I had to do was resculpt the head to match this mock-up and paint it, and then boom, Tim Sale Superman in my hands, right? Yeah, but there was one big problem with this strat. I pretty much only used the cover art as reference for this mock-up, but I had one kind of big problem with this. Sale kind of drew him very different panel to panel, which was a problem because depending on the panel, issue, or cover art, he looked kind of completely different. Even his hairstyle was different. If I really wanted to make the ideal Superman for All Seasons custom, I had to keep in mind just about every panel, cover art, and concept art for the story to be true to the art. This meant going through the entire 4-issue run and screenshotting images I felt were useful to use as a reference and putting them into a collage, which looked like this. It doesn't look like a lot of work or a lot of pictures, but it was fairly time consuming, but I think it was worth it to have a better understanding of how Superman was drawn by Tim Sale. It was also super helpful to have the comic in absolute format like I mentioned earlier, because having the pictures that big and up close really helped me to get in touch better with his art. It also had like sketches and concept art and whatnot, which really helped to have a better feel of what I think Superman should look like by Tim Sale. So after all this research, it seemed to me that he had more or less two main depictions of the character, at least in this story. There was the really brawny Superman with a huge face and a rectangle head that looked like a thumb. But there's also the more rounded off, gentle Superman that was like a thumb but a little more petite or something. I don't really know what this comparison is, but it's hard to explain. You just look at the picture. So I decided to meet it somewhere in the middle. I also knew that I wanted him smiling, so I had to consider that as well, which was actually helpful because there's an up-close shot in the comic of Clark Kent smiling, so I used that as a huge reference. For the hair, honestly, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, even on the same page, his hair looks different from panel to panel, so I kind of just did the look that I liked most, which is also pretty much the look that he sports through the entire Superman Kryptonite comic. So again, please read that. It's really good, and the art's really good, and the story's really good, and it's like it has nods to like the Silver Age and stuff, and it's awesome. And you know, now it was down to translating it to physical form. So first I sanded down the hair and the forehead of the DC Direct figure so I could eventually resculpt it. Then I went in with Abe's epoxy sculpt using these silicone sculpting tools I got on Amazon and wetting them using non-acetone nail polish remover to smooth things out. I find that using non-acetone nail polish remover actually works a lot better than water because it leaves less residue and it smooths things out easier. I had to sculpt his head in different layers because there was so much sculpting that needed to be done to extend his massive jaw that I couldn't add it all in one layer or else it would just fall off. I came up with this. Now all I had to do was paint it. I'm not gonna go through the process of painting it, but I used Vallejo model colors and the line work was super fun, and I wanted to replicate the shading that Hansen did, so I used thin layers and highlights using shell shading, blah 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 blah, whatever. Voila, it looked like this. Pretty happy with it, especially considering most of it was done from scratch. Now for the body. Like I said, I kind of worried about how I was going to replicate the watercolor look in plastic form, so at first I just didn't do that. I pretty much did the black ink detail shading and that was pretty much it, but I knew I could do better. So I went in and using different shades of blue in very, very thin layers, I slowly built up layers of shadowing around the areas that I wanted shading. Then after that, I went back in with black paint to line the shaded areas. I kind of wanted to create the look that it was a 2D drawing that was inked and then painted and then shaded again with black. And I'm super happy with the way it turned out. This figure retains the same articulation as it did before, just a little bit improved since I modded the body a little, so here's a couple poses that he can get into. I absolutely love this figure, and it's probably one of my favorite figures in my entire collection, which says a lot because I have a lot of Superman figures. I'm so happy that it came out this way, and I'm glad to honor the late and great Tim Sale, and of course, Bjorn Hansen as well. Also, I made a spare head for him because I wanted to see what it looked like with actual detailed eyes. Yeah, I don't love it, but it's fun to have an extra. And speaking of extras, I actually do have some of these heads for sale. See what I did there? I made 10 painted casts, so if you want one, shoot me a DM on Instagram. If this first batch of 10 goes well, who knows? Maybe I'll make some more. It's compatible with the Dark Knight Returns body and pretty much any body that head might fit on, and there's a peg hole in it so you don't have to worry about using blue tack or whatever, it'll fit right away. Thanks for watching. Again, if you'd like one of these heads, I got 10 of them, it'd be cool if you could support me, but if not, a like, subscribe, and a follow on Instagram at UxFigures would help me greatly. Thanks.